The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar, Protecting Your Kids in the Digital World, presented by WP alumnus Gary Marks. He graduated in 2010 with his master's in 2013. Children today are growing up in a born digital world, and parents need to be equipped with resources and tools to keep their kids safe in digital environments. This webinar will introduce selected resources to help monitor and protect your kids while giving them the freedom and technology that they want. We'll provide details on free and fee-based tools to help you find the right options to meet your needs. In today's webinar, our speaker, Gary Marks, will show you tools to use and ways to keep your children safe in today's digital world. Before I introduce today's presenter, I just want to go over how the webinar will work for those of you who haven't attended any yet. First of all, you should be able to see the presentation right now on your screen. You should also be able to hear the presentation through your audio system. Please feel free to ask questions by typing them in. There's a dashboard you have, and we are going to monitor your questions and we'll answer them at the end of the webinar. Any questions not answered in today's webinar, if we do happen to run over, can be addressed after. I can forward them to Gary, and I'm sure he would be happy to answer them. So please, feel free to type your questions in as the webinar is going on. If you have anything right now, we're ready. So now I'd like to introduce today's speaker and topic. Gary Marks holds two BA degrees in history and political science, as well as a master's in public policy and international affairs, all from William Patterson. He also received a graduate degree in library science from Rutgers. Gary started working in the library as a student assistant in 1997 and has continued his service in the Chang Library ever since, working in both lending services and interlibrary loan prior to his current role in reference. Outside of the library, Gary has also served as an adjunct instructor for Pioneer Success Seminar and Political Science. Gary is presently a PhD candidate pursuing a degree in public policy, law, and administration with a concentration in education policy. Gary has 3 children who are immersed in the digital world. So now I would like to introduce our presenter, Gary Marks. Gary?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for attending. Again, I have 3 kids in the digital world, and it's a blast. So we decided to put this webinar together to kind of help folks kind of understand what's going on in the digital world, how to protect their kids, how to be digital savvy, if you will. Since many of us my age didn't grow up in the digital world. So it's kind of a different experience for everybody. So we've put this together. What we'll talk about is my introduction here. What we will include is we've created a guide with resources that has guides on specific social media platforms, digital device, internet uses. There's also some quizzes available to test you and your children's cybersecurity and cyber knowledge. We have a number of website resources, tools, and applications that can be used on specific devices or downloaded separately, or they're available from the web, and a number of tips that can be provided. I'll provide some from my own personal experience, as well as some things that are out there in the literature. What we will not talk about today is I cannot provide direct tech support. So if you have questions about how to fix your device or how to download apps to your device, those I can't really address. But I can provide the tools and the resources for you to try and learn on your own a little bit. And I won't provide specific how-to guidance. And this is kind of a touchy area because everyone's situation and everyone's children's are different. So I don't want to preface this with like, I know everything and this is what's best for your kids. Those are your decisions. And we will just provide some of the resources that you can go out and learn for yourself. So as you can see, the library, we encourage everyone to be lifelong learners. We want to make sure that what we're providing here, everyone is aware that they don't not exactly endorsed specifically by the library. We're providing those to be a guide and a helpful tool for you. If you participate in our previous webinars, you've noticed that we created an alumni resources page. And if you're not aware, you are now. So what this is a guide that we provided from the library that has a number of free, useful tools for alumni. And what we did was we combined this new presentation we're talking about today on parent and children safety on the internet guide to that specific alumni guide. So everything's in one convenient location. All right. And to access that, you can go a number of different ways. I'll show you today. Through the Alumni Association, they have a benefits page, and you'll see the David Chang Library available. And then you'll see a link down here that says the new Alumni Resources Guide. So what we're going to be going over today is available on that guide, and you can access it from there. The other option is to go directly to the library homepage, which the link is listed right up here. And it's under our research guides, and just type in alumni. Okay, so now that you know how to get there, let's get started. And let's see if I can pull this up for you. So this is our David Chang Library Alumni Resources Internet Safety for Parents Guide. Okay, so this is actually not my child, but it's a depiction of how young kids are nowadays that are getting into the internet and the mobile devices. I'm sure everybody has seen that young kids as young as 2 or 3 are, parents are handing them their cell phones to play games and use the tools on those. So this is a very hot topic, as this is a growing trend, and these are fantastic. We live in a digital world that is fantastic and puts a number of great things at our fingertips that we just need to be aware of. So to get started, I'm going to talk about a little bit of key terminology for us to give everybody a little bit of background. Some of these things you may know, some of you may not, but I'm going to lay them out there to begin with. And some of the things that we need to understand to dive into the topic of internet and cyber safety. One of the main things is called an OS, and that's an operating system. And examples of those include an iOS or the Android. So when somebody asks, what type of phone do you have? Is it an iPhone or is it an Android? That's what they're talking about, and that's the operating system. And that's the same thing if you have a Windows computer or a Mac type thing. Those are the operating systems. And understanding the type of operating system you have is very important, because the tools that are available for parental safety and kind of management for children differ based on the type of operating system. Okay, they're also differ by device, which we'll talk about. And then there's the terminology called built-in versus third-party. This will refer to the tools that I'm going to talk about a little bit today that you can use. So some of those built-in refers to tools that are available within the specific device. So those include Amazon parental controls if you have a Kindle, or Apple parental controls if you have an iPad, or an iPod, or an iPhone. And then there's also for Google tablets and things like that, there's a Google Family Link, which are all built in specifically to the devices themselves. And those can be used by parents to a certain extent. And then there's also third party, which some of these you'll see in the parent tools option here. Those are a lot of third party options that you can download to the devices separately and set up accounts on those. And those have different features and capabilities. We'll talk a little bit about those in a little while. And so what we've provided here is some basic device examples for Kindles, for Apple devices, for Google Family Link. And what I want to go into real quick are these things here, because I think it's important to understand the terms that are used frequently in this field. And I don't know everything about the technology field, and I don't think anybody does, no matter how much schooling they've had. So it's okay to admit that, and I freely do. But when I don't know, and something does come up, or my kid comes home and says, I heard about this, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I certainly don't let on to that, but I go and find out. So what we provided here are 2 resources that you can use. And one I want to show everybody, but I want to provide a little bit of caution. You may not be comfortable seeing some of these things, and this is basically age appropriated too. So as we're talking about teenagers in the digital environment, they use a lot of text lingo, and the younger users, we've seen from the literature, they drive this text lingo. So this anonymous acronyms parents should know is a list of text shortcuts and that you'll see sometimes kids will be using. It's a very extensive list. So I invite you to check that out when you can. And you may be shocked at what some of the terminology is being used by the youth today, but it's better to be in the know than to be not. We also have Tech Terms Online Dictionary. So again, this is what I was mentioning before. If you're not too sure about, I don't know what an iOS means. I don't know what an operating system. I don't know about the security features. This is a great resource to go to check some of those things out. The Tech Terms Online Dictionary, and it's broken down, pretty simply for you, and it's also alphabetical. So it's a nice little online resource that if your kid comes home and says something you're not sure, like, let me go check it out. Okay. All right. So now that we've got a little bit of terminology background for you and some examples of built-in parent control features that are listed here, I'm going to go right into how to approach internet safety with kids and youth. So what we have here in the approaching internet safety with children and teens is there's suggestions and guides for how to approach this topic with your kids. And I don't pretend to be a psychologist to give advice on how to approach each individual child. I know it's worked for my kids, and I know it hasn't worked for my kids. And I have used some of these resources to do that. And these are age appropriate. So if you have younger children, you'll want to check out the Child Pledge for Internet Use. And this is good for, learning how to open up the discussion. I can't convey enough how important it was for me to actually talk to my oldest about the technology that I was giving to her, the phones, the tablets, and everything else, to have her participate and be knowledgeable about what's available and what's capable from them. So I'll just show one of these examples here. So this is like a child pledge to talk with your kids on, cyber safety, giving out personal and private information online. So it's a very good kind of like a checklist thing to go through with your kids to make sure that they are, know all these things online. And, we consider that when we were kids, we heard the stranger danger type thing of strangers in public, but now this is a very, cyber world, and we need to convey that to children in the online environment who, may not be fully aware of that. So the younger we start those things, the better, in my opinion. And so this basically gives a nice little contract, if you would, with the kids, and it gives them a bit of a sense of ownership of taking part in being tech savvy and good users of the internet. Okay. And there's one for older children as well, for teens. There's one for parents. So if you want to, really dive into it well with your kids. And then there's a family smartphone pledge. So this is more of a family commitment type thing. And it allows you to, work with especially older teens who have smartphones to put together what I call like an internet safety plan. And this is a big one too. I'm not, while driving, biking, or walking, I always set a very good example for my kids and try not to pick up the phone when I'm, in a situation where I'm having a conversation where it would look like I'm being rude. Definitely not when you're driving. But all those things, especially when we talk about teens who are going to be getting their driver's license and how much they're on their devices, this is a very important topic to cover with them. Okay. There's also a guide here on protecting your kids online, and we will talk about cybersecurity in a little bit, especially for, God forbid, any stalking issues or cyberbullying and things of that nature. So there's some resources on another page I'll show you that we put together for those type things on where you can get help, some of the resources to recognize those types of things. So you'll see here where to get help. The New Jersey State Police have a wonderful resource on cybersecurity, internet safety issues, especially with children. So that is a very good, if you ever have concerns, always contact the authorities, and they are very helpful. I'm a son of a police officer, so they have a whole cybersecurity unit that is dedicated to this topic. So I can't speak highly enough about what they do, and they serve as a great resource. Okay, so this is also a fun thing down here, the children and internet safety. I have the cyber safety quiz, which I challenge everyone to take with themselves and their children. And these are, again, age appropriate. So there is the cyber safety quiz for younger children. It's also available from the website and the PDF, and for middle schoolers. So if you'll take a look at these real quick. And so basically this is for younger kids, like I mentioned, probably 5th grade and below. And it's available from the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs. And it allows kids to kind of get an idea of what is personal information, what things they should be able to share, what things they shouldn't be able to share. And it's very, kid friendly, as you can see. So this is great for the younger ones. Like I have a 5-year-old who I did that with. And then we have the middle schoolers. So this one's a little bit older. I have a daughter who is 5th grader, but she's going on high school, if you believe it. And then this is, again, as you can see, the smartphones are always in the hands of the older students. Again, provided from the New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs. It's kind of a guidebook, and then there's also a quiz involved, asking similar questions. And this is a big one. I teach this even at the college level. What are the consequences of what I post? And we've seen that from college students down to high school students, of what you post in the online world stays there forever. Okay, and even the Snapchat, which we'll talk about, it's only there for 24 hours. It leaves a footprint. So, and then there's the cybersecurity handbook here, which covers kind of all ages, which I invite you to read, no matter what age you are. Especially, I have a mother who's not too tech savvy, who I help with a lot of her things with cybersecurity and details. So this is very good in covering the things from the youngest, children to older adults who are still never grew up in the tech world, who are still kind of learning just like anybody else. All right. So before I go on to the next pages here, I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the parent tools and some of the ones that I use. I use a combination of things, because it's important to note that not all children are the same, not all devices are the same, and not all of the controls will accomplish everything you want. So it's very important for the advice I can give you is to understand what exactly your needs are, what devices you have, what operating systems they work on, and the age of your children. Because there's no one-size-fits-all solution to this issue, to this topic. And I wish there was, but there just is not. And especially if you want your kids to be age-appropriated to content, you can't tell your 10-year-old, you can't access stuff because your 5-year-old brother can't. And you can't say your 5-year-old, yes, you can access all those things because your 12-year-old sister can. You need to basically for me personally, I want to make sure that the things that they're seeing and accessing and the controls that I have are age appropriate, and the freedoms are age appropriate too. So I heavily use the Kindle built-in parent controls, which this resource here is great, provided from the Net Nanny. So my kids all have Kindle Fires. I have child accounts on them. And then the big thing for me is the child settings, where you can set time limits, daily goals, add, remove content, smart filters. The smart filters basically allow you to limit certain websites and content that's like not age appropriated. And these you can set up for each child individually. I also take great advantage of setting the daily goals and time limits. My middle child, who is 7, does not like to read. The older one is a bookworm, but she does not like to read. So for me, she's not, and I use a lot of ebooks. For her, I set the daily goal and time limits so that she actually cannot access the games and apps on her Kindle until she's done the required reading for the day. These also allow you to set bedtimes, so I don't have my kids hiding in their rooms, staying up late beyond bedtime. And there's also, so this is the educational goal. So I have my setting for books that she's got to read at least a half hour before she can actually get into her videos or apps and game time and stuff. And you can also set total screen times. That's fantastic for the Kindle devices. But again, these are built into Kindle. These aren't going to be the same for Apple devices. So for anybody who's using an iPhone, iPad, or iPod, you'll want to use these. And there's examples provided here to guide you through how to use those, which I do. My oldest daughter also has an iPhone, so I use both of these. And then Google Family Link has been good because I set up my kids with email addresses. I know some people are like, oh, I don't know about that, but this was especially important because depending on what age your children are, they may be using the Google Classroom in their schools. And when they do so, they're actually giving Google accounts. So I created Google accounts for my oldest because I also wanted her to have a Gmail account to send emails to my, her grandmother or grandparents. And it's also, she has a tablet that operates and then I can put Google linked features on. And so this is fantastic. So you can create a Google family where you can manage everyone in your family from one location. It has availability, so when she's using her tablet and wants to download new games to it, it has an automatic request that sends me a remote request saying, Madeline has requested this. Would you like to add it to her device or not? And then I can review it, and I can remotely approve it or not from my own device. She doesn't have to hand me her tablet to do it. And I sat down with my daughter and walked her through these things. And what I'll show you on the second page of the guide here is I taught her how to look at the game reviews and the age appropriateness. So now when she sends the request for new apps and games that she wants, she actually sends me a note with the request saying, Dad, I looked at this. It's got a 4.6 star rating. It's age appropriate for 12 and older. And she says, but all of the comments have been very good, and it has very good security. So she's very knowledgeable, and she's also a little bit of a salesman. So she, when she wants something, she'll definitely try and sell me on all the positive features. But it's great to see the first time she did it, it stuck, and she was aware, and she started looking at those things. Because the first time she was sending me requests, I would go back to her and I'd say, look, this has got a very bad rating. People are saying it's constantly crashing. It's putting bad things on the devices. So she's very knowledgeable, and I can definitely thank that service that provided from Google Family to be able to accomplish those things. So the other one that I use I use QStudio, but I'd say Kids Lock. These are all parent tools that you can use. These are third party. And a lot of them are provided by this Internet Safety 101, so they have a bunch of lists of them there. These are probably the premier ones that are available. These are both, there's free versions and fee-based versions. I don't pay for anything, so I use a combination of the free versions of some of these with the device controls built in. And I find that meets all my needs without having to pay a lot of money for a third-party tool. But that's up to you, again, to what your needs are. So I'm going to show Kids Lock real quick, and we'll move on to the other pages that we have here. So Kids Lock it helps control screen time, but it's also a device. It's for the free version, it has built-in features so that you can control content on websites, accessibility for certain apps, and what I use it for as well. My phone is an Android device, and my daughter's is an iPhone. So a lot of the built-in controls that are iPhone, I can't control from my own Android device. But the Kids Lock works across operating systems. So you can download it onto your particular device and an iPhone device. So if you have an Android and they have an iPhone, and it will work across those two platforms. So it kind of bridges the gap of two systems that don't work together, if that makes sense. Hopefully not getting too technical for everybody. So what it does is it allows me to, if my daughter is giving my wife a hard time, my wife can text me and say, shut off her device, and I can do that from work. And it also, I can set screen times where after a certain hour, she can only access certain apps from the phone. I can enable certain things from my phone. I can turn on and off. I can approve content blocking. I can set daily limits. And this is the big one, the cross-platform. And then for controlling it, I have fingerprint ID on my device, so she can't actually try and go in and change any of the content. So if I give her my phone to use it one time or another, she can't go in and say, oh, I'm going to go in and change the settings. No, it's fingerprint ID so that she can't actually do that. She's pretty smart. And there's, so child-proofing for both, all these things. So this is a great tool that I use, and there is a fee-based version that you can look into if you wanted to, if that's something that makes it easier for you, go right ahead. And it can be, so if you do one pricing, it can cover multiple devices. So if you have multiple kids, you can download it on each of their devices and control each one of them independently. All right. And then I've used QStudio before as well. And this one, again, there's a free version. There's also a fee-based version. And it has a lot of the same features that it will work across platforms again. So if you have an Android, that's what the Android is, and then the Apple person over here, that you can control it using multiple type of devices across them. So these are ones that definitely I've used. And then this one also gets a little bit more in depth. So if you really need to monitor, and I use these terms, I try not to make them interchangeably. There's a difference between control and monitor. So what QStudio features, which is better than some of the others, is a monitoring system so that you can get weekly or monthly reports on what kind of content your child is accessing on a monthly basis. So what the total usage time is, you can see where they're spending so much of their time, whether they're surfing the internet, whether they're using online gaming, and you can see the peaks and valleys and things. It's very in-depth. But again, I think that's a little bit for older kids, for teens maybe. I've used it for my middle child after I first got her a kind of a netbook, and I didn't really think I needed a lot of the other features with the reporting. But again, those are up to you, just providing the resources and the materials. So screen time, family time, a lot of them will have the same features and materials, but these are some of the ones that are most recognized and trusted in the field. And then if anybody knows what Norton is, they provide internet security. So you might download it onto your home devices or laptops. And now Norton also has a Norton Family Premier, which is a service. So if you have a Norton account already, you can kind of add it to there. And so, but again, so if you pay for Norton already, you already have a certain fee, and then you can add this to your subscription if you wanted to. And again, it does a lot of the same things. This one is a little bit more for computers, for monitoring web content. So it definitely helps keeping web searching safer, and it's much easier to allow you to flag blocking sites that you want to than you do it after one of the devices. Because a lot of the other services, they say you can set child limits where I don't want my kid accessing anything that's rated 12 plus, but that is not always foolproof. So Norton allows you to set individual sites very easily. Okay, so let's move on. I think we're about a half hour in. So I'm going to move on to page 2 of our guide here. So we're going to talk about cyberbullying, gaming, and more. So we started building this one after somebody had asked some questions, so it's still a work in process. But online gaming, I'm sure if you have kids already, you may know about these things. My kids are huge into Roblox right now. But the younger gentlemen are big into the Fortnite. So we're going to be adding more guides on here that after we review them for different gaming software and consoles. But what I wanted to show parents right now is the rating boards. So these are fantastic to find out information about what the kids are playing, whether you want to approve it or not, and reviews. So the ESRB game ratings is fantastic. So you'll see a lot of these rated E for everyone, or basically this is the same as like the TV ratings, PG, PG-13, and they all have different ratings to them. So this right here, the ESRB, provides you an easy resource to say, all right, these are what my kids are playing, and this is like for any game. So it will cover games that are online, games that are used for specific devices, anything is listed here. So it is fantastic. They also have a tools section for and a family discussion guide, which is very good. Lucky my kids aren't really big into the gaming other than Roblox, or as of right now. But this is another great resource to understand all the games that are out there, the popularity of them, so you'll know like what's this Fortnite craze all about. You can go here, look up Fortnite, see what the details are, or you'll see a rating summary for it, and basically it gives you a little bit of like what platforms it's available on, and you can see this is definitely a teen-based game because of the violence in it. All right. So this is a definite excellent tool. There's also the Common Sense Media Game Rating, which is another option that provides actual ratings as well. So you can see what's rated by parents, what the age group census is. So, and this is fantastic because it actually can sort by age rating. So if your kids are interested in things and you want to see what games that are available that fall within their age range, you can just choose the age group and it will sort and give you things that are specifically for that age range. So this is good, especially because my mother likes to buy gifts and things for the kids and may not be too keen on the age ratings for some of them. So I provided her this. I was like, if you're buying the girls gifts, make sure you go here first and you can see the popularity of them and that they're age appropriate. So I don't have a weird issue on a holiday with them opening up a gift or a birthday. Okay, so another big topic is cyberbullying. So this is a very concerning issue, and we've seen this especially in the younger ages, especially getting younger, which is scary. It started with teens, and now it's getting to younger age groups. So this is a full guide on cyberbullying, and NetSmart also provides a great website resource for topics that basically can help you and your kids understand cyberbullying. So this is a great tool. They have tip sheets, lesson plans, things that you can work with at home, things that you can share with your teachers in school. I know a lot of school media specialists provide kind of tips for kids in the schools, but I know a lot of that translates to home, which is one of the reasons we started doing this topic was that what's being taught to the kids and teens about cyberbullying and protecting yourself online. We want to make sure that parents are seeing those type of things. So there's a bunch of cartoon videos here that will help kids in a fun way understand what cyberbullying is, how to stand up for themselves, how to stand up for others, when they need to seek help, and then so you're aware of some of the issues and topics that are going on in the cyber world as well, because it is ever evolving and it is massive. So, okay. Two of the big ones here for Fortnite and Roblox. If your kids are into those, you can feel free to check them out. I use the parents' sources in Roblox for my kids as well, so that I can control. There is chat features in there, and Roblox, has announced, been very aware and proactive in preventing cyberbullying or stalking using the chat features that are built into Roblox, which is a dangerous scenario if you have people making friends through these different types of games that they don't know, and then it leads to discussions that shouldn't be taking place that you need to protect your kids from. So I use the parents' Roblox tools a lot for my kids to play, and especially since I have kids that are different ages that both play. So I need to make them a little bit different to which ones can actually chat and which ones need approval to add new friends. So this guide here is excellent for that topic. Okay, digital citizenship. I'm not going to go into great detail about that right now. That's kind of more of a pet project. It's basically so that as kids get older, they understand the rules and etiquette of social media, and when they join these social networks that they've kind of created a bit of a small government, and they give up some of their rights to participate in them. So when you post things there, some of the material and images and stuff like that, you give away the rights to them so people can kind of take them. So you got to understand the citizenship that's involved in becoming digital literate. And this is a quick media guide from Common Sense, which is a great organization, which I use a lot in my teaching. And then social media. So we're going to be adding more to these. Facebook has been going through a whole bunch of issues, but it's also not as popular with the younger generation coming up right now. YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok are very popular right now, as well as Instagram. So we'll be updating the Instagram guide on here pretty soon. But there's a parent's guide for each one of these. TikTok, if you're familiar with it right now, it's a kind of a video sharing source. So this is a quick guide to give you a rundown on what it does, where it's available, how kids can use it, and then how you can also keep your kids safe and how to block users, restricting content and screen time. So this is a great resource because TikTok is kind of blowing up a little bit because it's more of a creative way of using YouTube. I know my wife tells me she teaches middle school that all of her students want to become professional YouTubers. So TikTok is very much peeling off of that genre, but it's allowing kids to be a little bit more graphically and combine some of their tech tools and things that they can create little funny cartoons and stuff in the same way that they, instead of doing just YouTube videos. And then the Parent's Guide to Snapchat. And there's a full advice for parents for social media from Internet Safety 101. So this is a good thing for talking with your kids. And this is, I've had this exact conversation with my daughter about, being honest about their age online and how I use the privacy settings and the teaching her why we use those things. But they also have a wonderful little tools on the left-hand side here for parental guides, social media resources, social media apps. I didn't use some of their social media app guides because they haven't been updated recently with new privacy settings for Facebook and things. We're kind of building our own, but when we do that, we'll update the guide to have those things as well. Okay, and the last page on our guide here is the teaching resources. So this has been designed a little bit for educators, but it's very big for parents as well. And this is one of the topics that's big in the media throughout the world today for adults as well, is media literacy. And we've heard this whole topic of fake news. We hear about it from our leaders in government, but it's very challenging for students and young children who grow up in this, where they have not yet understood how to comprehend and be critical thinkers. And myself, I grew up in an age where fake news wasn't a big thing, and I was able to tell the differences. And now that line's being blurred, so children and kids are especially vulnerable to misleading information. So this site here is both for parents and for kids and for teachers. So this basically allows you, and it's separated by grades. So you'll see here, if your kids are in grades 6 through 8 and you want to teach them how to identify websites that may be leading to false information or might be dangerous, they have a wonderful little funny tool here that kids in those age groups will find hilarious. And this is designed by a middle school librarian. So this is a lot of things that they're doing. If your school has a school media specialist, this is what they do, and they are fantastic at it. Factitious is a wonderful game we use in the college level as well, and they've actually expanded a little bit. So this is like it's a game where it gives a sample headline from a news or a website and basically challenges you to determine whether it's a real or a fake source. Okay. And lesson plans for fake news, how to evaluate resources. And I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom here. This reverse image search is fantastic. It's from Common Sense Media. There's another one called TinEye that I want to put on here that my daughter as well, her friends would send her pictures and then she'd show it to me and I'm like, by the way, that's not a real picture. She's like, what are you talking about? And I would show her how to take that image and go to one of these resources and see that, oh, that's a picture from like something else that somebody's claiming is this. And she's like, oh, I didn't even know that. So I was like, yes, and now you can be wary. So if you see an image online and you're not like sure that that's real, you can go here and check it out. So she's loved that a lot. She does it a lot with her friends, and she loves proving her friends wrong all the time. So they'll send a picture and she's like, no, that's not real. So she loves doing that. And there's education online safety resources from the New Jersey Department of Education, which is fantastic. So I recommend this as well. There's a lot of information here about protecting kids online, cybersecurity awareness, state police internet safety tips. So that's another wonderful Department of Education tool. Again, it's mostly educational awareness, and a parent and educator guide to media literacy and fake news. So this is like a PDF document to kind of help parents explain this to their kids. If I can get it to load. And this is from Connect Safely, which is a nonprofit organization as well. I'll come back to that if I need to. These are all related resources on this topic. We have some laughter resistant humor is a weapon in the age of Trump. And these are all wonderful tools for education. And I use the digital and civic literacy skills resource here a lot. It's just because that's kind of my field is civic literacy and political science. Uh, but I think I'm about 40 minutes in right now. So I wanted to just head back to the homepage here and show a little bit of the Internet Safety 101. So we can see this is basically for any kind of topics. And you'll see they have updates that you can sign up for, which I choose not to for some stuff. And it's basically broken down for the parents program. And these will provide tools for a number of different topics. Cyberbullying and predators and trafficking are two that as your kids get older, you certainly need to be mindful of those resources. And in a frightening world, even somewhat younger. And then cybersecurity talks about the sharing of passwords. Depending, my daughter has a Google account, but is not attached to any financial materials. But the younger they learn these things, the better, because as soon as they become adults at 18, they will have the availability to have accounts and online banking, and everybody uses online banking and online buying and purchasing things from Amazon. So cybersecurity is very big, and they say like 1 in 10 Americans now are subject to identity theft or fraud. So it's very important to be cyber secure and mindful of those things, especially if we can build it into our kids at younger ages. So I'm going to turn it over to questions now. So I wanted to save a little bit of time. I know I blew through a lot of information there, and there are a ton of resources here. So I'm going to ask if anybody has questions, please let us know, and we'll try to address them now.
Okay, thank you. The first thing I want to say, and anyone who came in a little later, this is all on the website, and you can get this by either going to the alumni website or the library website for William Patterson, and you can get, here's the link. So anyone who came on late, I just want to let you know that. And I just want to say, somebody made a comment when you were talking about the social media. And Gary, if I could bring this up, maybe you could go back, but I'm not sure. Someone brought up about there's been some issues on YouTube recently with YouTube content creators being revealed as sexual predators. And I know you talked a little, oh, here we go, Parents Guide to YouTube.
Yes, and this was updated just recently.
Okay.
So this is a wonderful, this is from Common Sense Media. All right, this is a very hot topic right now. There's a little video here. It's about 2 minutes long that you can watch and you can see what's going on. But yes, there's a difference between YouTube and YouTube Kids. And again, YouTube is a hugely popular source, especially for younger kids as they're growing up. It is owned by Google, in case you didn't know. And as you probably recently heard about the Children's Privacy Protection Act in California. And YouTube has been troublesome in this area because it's very content creators. Everybody wants to be a content creator on YouTube. So this resource here will be able to allow you to answer specific questions. How can I minimize exposure to iffy videos on YouTube? How can I find behind? So there's a wonderful resources here that you can use. Luckily, my youngest two only have access to YouTube Kids, and my daughter's school has blocked YouTube from any of their devices to be accessed outside of this. When they're on their Chromebooks and things like that, because again, Chromebooks, Google owns YouTube, so it gives you a little bit more leeway to control those types of things. But you can block YouTube. The problem is, again, nothing is 100%. So it's a lot of it is educating the kids more than and also being a mindful parent. But I don't want my daughter to think that I'm watching over her 24/7. So I try and balance the monitoring and control with education. So I want her to be educated on this topic.
Okay. Yeah, this was someone named Jeremy. So thank you, Jeremy. And I'm not sure if Jeremy is a parent but is also concerned like everyone else is on here about safety for children, because it's almost like, Gary, would you agree? It's almost like the Wild West on the internet, and kids can just go on it, and on these Snapchat and things like that. So you really have to monitor them. Another person here was Fortnite was the big thing that they were interested in. This person has a 13-year-old son and
Mm-hmm.
was interested in the stuff you were talking about, Fortnite. I don't know if you can go back to the Fortnite. Oh yeah, here it is.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just showing the person where it is. So you
So
have the
again,
ultimate guide to
there's a
Fortnite.
full six things parents should know about Fortnite. Again, it's a quick video, but it's also a conversation starter. Um, and the biggest thing that I have found is my daughter was very big into Roblox because all of her friends were into it. So she came home asking, "Can I get Roblox?" And I'm like, I'll have to see. And as soon as I got a chance, I went and I had to start looking up what Roblox was. So I went and saw some. I went to some of the resources that I use and wanted to get parent, feedback. I wanted to get developer feedback. I wanted to get reviews, so that when I had the conversation with her, I was able to talk to her about, what the pros and cons of Roblox are, and then as she started, I wanted to ask questions like, well, why is everybody using it? What's it do? And I tried to have her explain to me, what her understanding of the game was after I had done my homework, because I wanted to understand her perspective of things, of what other kids are talking about and what she might not be aware of. So when I had that conversation with her, I was like, oh, did you know it also does this? And she's like, oh. I was like, yeah. So I was like, we need to talk about how we can, make sure that we're not, subjected to strangers on there, and things. So I don't have kids who are in Fortnite, but I know other parents who do. So again, I recommend reading the Fortnite Frenzy article here. The video is excellent. There's also a guide for how to talk to kids about Fortnite. And then there's a full review by Common Sense Media about how it works. So you can definitely, I encourage everyone to learn more about what their kids are doing, because then it helps in understanding how to monitor it better, how to have the conversations with the kids about it, rather than just saying, oh, my kid's playing Fortnite. I don't even know what game I don't even know what it does.
Okay, I'm just going to say we have a few questions about if you just logged on. Some people are just logging on. There is a recording available. I'm going to send the link to everybody who is registered and or attended, so you can view this again and see all the links. Also, I will send the link to this section where you can go on the website, so you can click right on there. There is a question, and I don't know. Oh, here we go. Kappa. Kappa, Gary, what is COPP? I was mentioned before in the video.
Yes.
Okay, this person is just mentioning about. I'm not that familiar with it, so a quick concern about Kappa, about how I'm going to say it says how it affects safe content creators, because here it is, Privacy Protection Act. He's just concerned about how it affects safe content creators, because obviously it's good for the content creators that are not, safe, but does it negatively impact people who are safe, you know, for your children? I don't know.
Um,
I'm not as familiar about COPPA.
yeah, I mean, and
Sure you are.
I study and I teach, kind of legal issues and legal content. So I can talk a little bit about the act, but I don't think that's really what people are interested in. They're really more interested in how it impacts, the devices and their kids specifically. So the COPPA is designed to be like a privacy protection for children. So the way I can kind of relate it to adults is if you understand what cookies are, where it basically websites and browsers will track your searching history, in order to provide like ads and things that are, of interest, that they think will be interest to you, that they tie to marketing, things like that. And it's somewhat creepy. Some people like it, like, oh, how do they know I was searching for this? They don't even put two and together, and then all of a sudden you get an email for something you're shopping for on Amazon. So this was designed to be a privacy protection act specifically for children and using YouTube Kids. How it's impacting YouTube and developers is not something I am 100% qualified to speak on as of yet, especially since this is, this is just not, this is recent that the company was fined for violating the COPPA Act. It was just in September. So it's something that I plan to monitor a little bit more, and I can definitely add more information on there. But I definitely, again, I suggest diving into these resources on here to make sure that you can see that your kids are getting the right content, and that's what we're designed for, is to basically provide you with the access for this. And basically you could create a YouTube account with a Gmail address, so anybody can do it. So the challenges are is how YouTube manages content developers to root out ones that are iffy, if that helps at all.
Yeah, it's funny, Gary, like so many comments are coming in about COPPA. So one person is saying how it finds, ridiculous amounts of money, which 170 million you saw there.
That's a drop in the bucket for YouTube, though.
Yeah. But it can also find creators sums of money if their content's too kid friendly or not kid friendly enough. And someone else is saying that it's a good act that protects privacy for children under a certain age. And then somebody else said that they think Vox may have covered COPPA recently, and there's some great resources where you can read the pros and cons of it. So I think this might be a whole nother webinar.
Okay.
So
yeah, and I'm always interested. So you'll see on the guide. So if you are ever coming across content that you suggest you've read that you think is interesting, please don't hesitate to email it to me. I am always we started this alumni resources guide as a tool for our university alumni, and it covers a lot of content, and we are still adding stuff to it all the time, which is why we wanted to make it this way, because this way it's dynamic. It can constantly change. So if I created a PowerPoint with all this materials on it now, next year it's irrelevant, because that's how quick the world of the internet and gaming and everything works. So what I wanted to be able to do is create something that is dynamic, that can change with time, that I can consistently update with new material and new resources. So that's why it's in this version rather than just a PowerPoint slideshow for you to look at and have it say, oh, this is no good anymore because there's new YouTube laws and new YouTube creators.
Okay. Just seeing if there's no more questions. If you have any more questions, there's maybe 1 or 2 more minutes to get them in. This is all really interesting stuff, and like I said, you're all going to have access to it. It's very relevant, and thankfully, like Gary said, it's not static. It's going to be changing and updating constantly, and Gary's great at that. So he's got 3 kids, so he has to be great at it, right?
Yes, and it's coming around the holiday time, so my oldest is asking for new devices. So I'm kind of in that conversation with her now of what kind of device she wants, what she wants it to be able to do, and then I have to try and make a smart decision so that I know what tools are available to me as she gets older, and and one of the challenges I have, and I don't know if anybody else has as well, is she has friends who are oftentimes getting access to things that I feel are inappropriate or way above their age appropriate level, and I have to explain to them that that's fine for their parents to make those decisions, but not for me. So and luckily she's pretty understanding, and she's actually going to school, and I've heard from other parents that like, your daughter said that my kid shouldn't have this. I'm like, yeah, well, that's what she said. So
I was just going to ask you how your kids react when you give them these controls. That was my question. Do they get mad, or are they all as willing to say, okay, they're fine with it? Do they not know you're using the controls? I mean,
oh no, they are certainly aware. My oldest has been very good about it, and because she actually goes in and she teaches her friends about a lot of the things, so she's taking kind of a leadership role on it, which I thought was great because I'm an educator. So, and my middle daughter is a bit more challenging. She doesn't like to read. She doesn't like that I have the education requirements on her Kindle, but she gets it as well. She's been also the little bit of the sneakier one who tries to try and find ways around it. And then they also come to me with like, oh, my device turns off at 8 o'clock. Dad, can I have more time since it's a half day of school tomorrow or something like that. So they certainly know that I can control those things. And when we call them for dinner from upstairs in their rooms doing things, and they don't listen. And all of a sudden, I just flick a switch on my phone, and their devices turn off. And then you hear the grumbles, and they come downstairs. Well, we've been calling you for 10 minutes for dinner. So it's nice to not have to go upstairs and take things away. I can just we send them messages, and then we're like, all right, now your stuff's just going to get turned off. So
that's pretty cool that you can do that, though.
Yeah, I can. My wife's not as savvy as I am, so she often texts me. She's like, she's giving me a hard time. Can you restrict her stuff right now and turn off? And I have it so I could turn off specific apps. So if I don't want her playing Roblox, but I still want her to be able to message and stuff, I can just turn off a specific app rather than shut down the whole device. So that's where it's very important to understand the devices, the built-in features, as well as some of the third-party features. And how they can complement one another.
Okay. All right. Well, it's almost 1:30, so I'm going to say if you have any questions, if you think of anything you want to ask Gary after this, you'll be getting a short survey when this ends. You can just type in a question. I know, Gary, you'll probably feel happy to answer. And I will send everybody the link to this on YouTube. On YouTube, there you go. It'll be safe, don't worry. And I will also send you all the link to where you can look at all these resources, which are great resources. You can download PDFs and everything. So I want to thank Gary for doing the webinar and for actually for putting this whole resource together for all the alumni and students to get on here and see these things, which are great. So thank you, Gary. I really appreciate it. We all appreciate it. And thank you all for coming to the webinar. And we hope we will see you at our further webinars. And anyone, feel free. People are saying they're going to pass this information along, so you may be getting a few emails, Gary.
I mean, this is publicly available, so we've designed it for alumni, but anybody can access this. So feel free to share. It's whoever you want to. There's no paywalls. There's no secret logins. Awesome. We've just compiled everything together in one nice, convenient location.
Thank you. That's great. And thank you all for attending and for sharing this, because it's really important information. Okay, everyone have a nice day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Gary.
No problem.